Kieran, thanks very much for joining the Toast Talks podcast. I actually should say for hosting the Toast Talks podcast. So really, thanks for setting everything up here. Very impressive. It is a pleasure to sit down with such a high caliber businessman, business leader in the Northwest. I think you're actually tipping into business legend. I think you've been so consistent over the years. And I'll have so many questions for you. I'll try and get through. So before we get to your actual career overall and the various decades that you've been around, you grew up in Sandmills. What was it like at the early age? Were you a good student?
No, I'd be honest, it was a bit of a mess. Myself and my twin brother Brendan went to Sandmills Primary School, and he was seen as the brainy one. So whenever we were doing the 11 plus, he was sitting in front of me, so he kind of helped me get over the line. So the two of us ended up then going to the Christian Brothers in Oma, and I left at 16. I just didn't like school, and he continued on with his career and went up to university in Belfast. So I had a choice, what I was going to do, and I went for an interview in O'Neill's for a stock control clerk. I had just turned 16, and I got the job. And when I found out what the wages was, it was $22.50 a week. I told my father, I said, "There's no way I'm going down there for that. Sure, I can get £33 a fortnight on the dole." He says, "You're going." So that was the start of it. And then, I got married when I was about 24, and myself and my wife Linda were going to go to Australia, and we had the tickets and all booked, and the manager had left O'Neill's at that stage, and they were looking for someone new and to take over. And he asked the supervisor in the factory, who could do it. There was only 30 people employed then.
Yeah.
And he says, there's only one man who can do that. It's Kieran Kennedy, but he's going to Australia. So Mr. O'Neill, whose father founded the company in 1918, invited myself and Linda to Dublin, and he interviewed the two of us, actually. And I suppose the rest is history. And, from day one, I made a promise that I would never refuse an order. I would never let a customer down. So, just delighted that I was able to grow that company and grow employment, because I was fed up listening to the fact that, Strabane was the economic black spot of Western Europe. At the time when I started, unemployment in Strabane was over 25%. So, from day one, as I say, just got the head down and, work with some great people, and grew to 750 before I retired.
So you started 8 years after you joined O'Neill's. You were put into the management role.
Yeah.
How tough was that?
That was tough enough, because in fairness, I was probably seen to be one of the biggest messers in the factory at the time. And, whenever the boss went out, we didn't, it was down tools, we just had a bit of crack, but it was great. I had great respect from all the guys that worked in the factory, and they knew what we were trying to do, and we were trying to secure the future for them too as well. So, no, I wouldn't say it was tough. I was like poacher turned gamekeeper, but it had to be done, and I'd worked out grand.
Have you ever heard of imposter syndrome?
No.
Right. So it's where you're put into a position where you're kind of going, I'm not quite sure if I'm capable of doing this or whatever. Did you have any of that? At being so young?
No, I was sure, because from day one, whenever I joined the factory, my ambition was always be, someday I'm going to be running this place.
You had it from the outset?
From the first day I started, I said, someday I'm going to be running this place.
Did you know how right you were going to be?
Well, at the end of the day, it wasn't really happening for me, and that's why we were going to Australia.
Right.
And then the opportunity arose, so I just grabbed it with both hands, and as I say, 42 years later is where I am.
So you touched on it there. You started with 30 employees, you grew into over 750. Whenever you look at that, you became O'Neill's is now the largest player in the Irish market. And whenever you think about that, that's an incredible achievement in the sense that your competitors are at it as big multinational companies. But can you talk us through maybe some of the difficulties that there were in that to try and, how did that happen, that you took it from that to that? Was it just gradual progression and increasing year on year?
I suppose it was. But, we were always, kind of under pressure in production. the demand was always greater than what we could supply. So for us to keep up with the demand, and don't forget sponsorship and GAA, came in the sort of early 80s, and not both counties and clubs. So that meant that as the clubs and counties were getting new sponsors, they needed new gear. So that all helped in terms of grow the demand. So basically, what we were doing, all the time was growing the demand, but for us, it was about the close relationship that we would have with our customers, and that was most important for us. And the fact that we were, dealing direct, we were going direct to the customer, sort of maybe cutting out the middleman. But to be competitive, we had to go and work with the customers. And I suppose the key for me as well was giving the customers what they want.
Yeah.
And if you can build that relationship with your customers, I think it's very, very important. And then, to build the trust. And, we had good relationships with all the counties, and no matter who came on board then afterwards, they couldn't really compete with us because they wouldn't have that level of service.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have had, what we were trying to do in terms of what we were doing is we were taking it from the very, very start. We didn't have anybody there in the middle of the actual production process. We were, what was called vertically integrated in terms of, we brought in yarn, we made the fabric ourselves, we dyed the fabric ourselves, we cut it, we printed it, we sewed it. So, we have complete control over the supply chain, because sometimes you'll find that, if you're dependent on somebody else, inevitably they're going to let you down at some stage.
Well,
so
we
we made sure that we had complete control of the supply chain.
And how difficult was that to get? Because if you look at, so you had supply chain management, you had the sales to look at, the financials, the HR.
Yeah.
How did you manage to coordinate all of that?
No, well,
Successful?
in fairness, it's all about the team around you. I had a very, very good team. The best of people. Very, very important to surround yourself with good people that you can work with and that you can trust.
Yeah.
And, I had no bother with that. I didn't have to worry really about the financials. I had a very good financial manager. I had very good HR staff. I had very good, and we recruited all them people up throughout the company because we knew they were good, and whatever training they had to get, we made sure they were trained. So, for us it was, knowing that the people that could do the job and that you could trust, and just to bring them along with you. And, we were quite successful in doing that.
Yeah. In any business journey, there's always kind of quite difficult times. And I spoke to somebody and he kind of commented that he remembers the darker days probably more than the successful days. So the days when things are really, really tough. And how did you manage to, or what sticks out for you during that time?
Well, I suppose there was a couple of
the troubles, obviously, at the time.
Yeah, but that never really affected us. We just kept going. We just kept our head down and kept going. So the troubles didn't really have that much effect. We just got on with our lives. In terms of production, like we would have had a product that we would have been maybe 50% of our sales, and at one stage we were making that product at a loss, so we had to make a very serious decision of what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But what we did is we were really turn it around and look at it as an opportunity, so to stop making that product. But at that time we went on and to try and grow our online sales. So a lot of people that we had who were working on machines and making this product, we transferred them into our online business, and then we just grew our online business.
Yeah.
So, for me, there was more than one way to skin a cat. And, I would rather look at opportunities than look at, difficulties in terms of as they arrive. And I suppose one of the key moments for me in my career was in the pandemic. Yeah. I mean, sports stopped. Our order book fell off a cliff, really. And we were faced with a very, very difficult decision to have to close the factory. 750 staff. There was no furlough scheme announced at that time. That actually was announced the day after we closed the factory. So we made a very difficult decision to close the factory. But, it didn't concern me that much because I knew we always would have a plan.
Yeah.
And I sat there that night on my own in the office. In fact, people were driving up and down the road and seeing me sitting there and saying, is Kieran all right? but I haven't said, here, what am I going to do? So I knew that, the Western Health and Social Care Trust were looking for scrubs, for the pandemic. And I said, well, why don't we try that?
Yeah.
So the next day, I made a phone call, got a sample organised, brought the girls in on the Saturday morning to produce a counter sample. And by 4 o'clock that evening, I had my first order for 10,000 scrubs, and we ended up between the Western Health and Social Care Trust and other trusts in Northern Ireland and in the Republic of Ireland as well, making over 100,000 sets of scrubs. Yeah. And we really, again, use that from a raw material. We're able to change and give the customer what they wanted, a much more comfortable garment than maybe they were wearing before. So, the thing is not to panic, it's to sit down and, work it out and think, there's always a better way. So, and by that, we closed the factory on the Thursday night, and by Wednesday, we had the girls in sewing the scrubs again. And that was all, as a result of the work that we had done for many years before in terms of having a supply chain, because anybody could have made scrubs at that stage, but they wouldn't have had the fabric. But we had the fabric. And I was able to make a phone call on the Monday morning to our dye house in Dublin and say, right, I want whatever 10,000 metres of fabric dyed sky blue, for example. And we had that fabric in Strabane on the Tuesday afternoon, and we cut it on the Tuesday afternoon, and we had it on the machines getting sewed on the Wednesday morning. So again, that's all to do with the vertical integration and the years of planning that went before.
So you've said before, and you've kind of touched on, every problem there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
That's a kind of quite a mindset to have, and there's not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah.
Maybe the most successful business leaders tend to have that. But you kind of tend to need to have a myriad of other skills. So what would you think your biggest skill is? Is it the mindset? Or is it...
but, it's just, I suppose, I suppose I'm driven, and I would never let anything beat me. Yeah. Keep telling everybody I'm like a dog with a bone, I just won't let go. And, you just have to be. And I suppose that served me well in terms of, this. I think it's my resilience.
Yep.
And maybe thinking outside the box at times.
Yeah. But how do you keep that energy and that motivation? Like, you've been at this a long time, and how do you keep?
I don't know. It's just me. I don't think I'll ever change. I'm probably as driven now as I ever was.
Yeah.
So. Look, either you're born with it or not, and I would have probably got that from my mother because she was driven. She could have turned her hand at anything, and she was, a great mindset in terms of working and whatever. So, if you have it, you have it. You know what I mean? But I know not a lot of people have it, but you try and instill that on the others as well.
Well, just on that. So last year, you decided to step down from O'Neill's. 42 years in charge. How hard was that decision?
I suppose I had never really thought about it much before, and then, when I did think about it, though, actually, as I'm involved in a lot of things as well, and I suppose it was just trying to get that balance. Yeah. So when I made the decision, I actually decided that I wouldn't retire until 23. I'll be 60 in May 23. And then when I got the notion about retiring then, I said, my God, maybe I'll do it at Christmas, this Christmas. And then, once I had the notion in my head, then again, being driven and looking at other things, I said, no, well, I'll do it in June. So I retired in June, and, I was just wanted to spend more time with my family, and do things and try and work on this other business that I've been involved in for over 30 years with, the training sector in Strabane. So
you, after O'Neill's, you could have called it a day and sort of retired. But as you say, you're driven, and you probably couldn't sit. And if you took a year off, you'd probably find yourself.
No, even if I have a day off, I struggle in terms of, I always have to be doing something, and I like doing something. Well, she's delighted because she never sees me, but you just have to keep going, and I couldn't sit about the house. That was never the plan. So I would never retire from O'Neill's unless I had, some other interests. And as obviously, being on the board of Invest NI and chairman of Strabane Bid and chair of Strabane 21 Training Services, I have plenty to keep me busy, and that's just the way I like it.
So you seem so you're choosing to continue in 21 training, obviously, alongside some of your other businesses or your ventures, but you do seem to place a particular emphasis on continued learning. So you've gone to Queen's and got strategic leadership. You've done another notable business school in Barcelona in recent years. How important do you think it is, that the always learning aspect of it? Because you haven't really stopped at any stage. You've always continued.
Well, I suppose, I've been involved with the board of Strabane Training Services, for probably 30 years. And, again, my objective was always to try and grow employment in Strabane. And, that was a good way of trying to work with that and understand. And then we took over another training company last year, Customized Training Services, and formed 21 Training. So, I've been involved in the setup of that. And we now have, over almost 70 staff employed, over 650 apprentices and 150 young people on the Skills for Work and Life program. So that kind of drives me in. I enjoy working in that sphere. In terms of, I didn't really do the education part of my career until later on, because I kept saying, I don't have the time to do that. But I suppose I realised at one stage that you need to make the time. So I did the critical leadership program in Queen's, and that was very, very good. I also did the Leadership for Growth program, which was funded by Enterprise Ireland and Invest NI, and that was where 40 CEOs from Ireland went for a week to Barcelona, a week to New York, and a week back in Barcelona again, with the top business school in the world, IESE, who, were just absolutely top of their game in terms of, the people that they brought in to help us and whatever. And the output of that was like a strategic plan. So, that was a great learning experience. And, we met some good people there too, for, to build your network as well. So, I didn't come to it too late. Probably in hindsight, my advice would be do it earlier in your career. You need to make time. But I was just so busy. I just couldn't, I couldn't see myself taking a couple of days out to go to, these programs and Queens and all. But look, I would, these skills, they learn you some really, really important things about, how you build a team, that everybody can't be like you. If you expect everybody to be like you, it would end up, disaster. And sometimes you have to, sit back and understand that, because you've got to manage your expectations in that regard. So if you can get people who have different skill sets, it's very, very important. If you have somebody in finance and somebody who's good at HR, somebody, with, different types of skills or whatever. Yeah. You need to surround yourself with them people, because you can't do it all yourself, first of all. And secondly, you don't have that skill set either. You have a certain skill set and you can't be good at everything. Yeah. So for me, that's where the learning come into it, and I continue to try and develop it. If I do have any regrets, it was that I didn't do that earlier. Yeah.
Do you see kind of education and training for Strabane in particular as a key motivator to lift?
Without a doubt, obviously as my role in the board of Invest NI, we're trying to grow the local economy. To grow the local economy, we need to, have the people with the right skills. For example, if you look at, foreign direct investors, they'll come where the skills are, or as the man says, they fish where the fish are. So it's very, very important that we get the balance right, Well, that's why it's most important that we try and grow, McGee University in Derry, and give the young people who are leaving school or going to college, the right skills to further their careers, and the right skills that these foreign direct investors are looking for. At the minute, it's all fintech and regtech and all that kind of stuff. So it's important that we skill these young people up, so that these foreign directors come out and say, "Wow, we'll go to the Northwest because the quality of life and all the good things, but because we have a skill set there that we can go and pick up and give, I suppose, the young people a decent future."
Are you optimistic about the future for the Northwest?
I'm very optimistic, yeah. I do think that we're only just starting. Yeah. A lot of good things happening there. There's a lot of building works going on in the area. It's good to see cranes there. the university are doing a fantastic job, the new medical school. I really just think we're only starting to begin. You know, I mean, we have been so far behind for so long, but it's time now. I think our time has come now that we can really start putting, you know, our foot to the board and trying to grow this economy. You know, with the new city deals that are coming, and you know, all 250 million investment plan for Derry and Strabane as well. I think there's great opportunities for, especially for our youth. You know, and you know, again, to secure their future.
Yeah. And just if we touch on, so the purpose of the Toast Talks podcast, I suppose, is to focus on positive stories in the Northwest and things like that. And that's obviously why we're speaking about 21 training and the opportunities that they're providing and things like that. But we also, I suppose, want to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. So you've touched on the young people and the you know, building their skills so that they are equipped to kind of continue on and do things like that. What would your advice be to somebody starting out in their journey? Would it be education? Would it be kind of just you need to build your resilience? Would it be,
you know, I think, you know, it's very, very difficult for young people, you know, at 15 or 16 years of age. Actually, I'm going to meet a group of young people tomorrow in Sion Mills. I've been asked to talk to them about leadership and stuff. And, you know, my advice to them really will be, look, I know it's difficult, but you need to, you know, you can't go nowhere without a plan. You know, P.V. O'Neill, you know, from O'Neill's always said to me, Kieran, you can't go nowhere without a plan. And that's one of my biggest, you know, sayings. And, you know, think early on, you know, university is not for everybody. You know, there's all other routes that people can go. But if you can try to think about it and make your mind up early, you know, and set your goals and objectives, you'll find that, you know, you can reach them. You know, from day one, you know, when I started as managing director in O'Neill's, I was thinking, you know, I made myself a promise, as I said earlier, never refuse an order, never. Set yourself goals, you know, set yourself objectives. And, you know, if you work hard at them and you believe enough in them, you will reach them. Yeah. Absolutely no doubt. Anybody can do it, you know, but you have to, you know, have a good work ethic, you know, be in first in the morning, be out last at night, you know, and that's how you do it, and that's how you impress your employers as well, you know. It's
good old-fashioned hard work.
Exactly. Well, there's no answer to
that. Just to touch on kind of back on O'Neill's, but also training at 21 training. So you grew that business very, very successfully, and with 21 training, you obviously touched on it. It's expanding, it's hiring more staff and things like that. How carefully would you watch the number side of it, so either the financials or kind of the strategic direction of it? So how do you keep yourself up to date on what's happening with the business?
Well, obviously the numbers are very, very important. And again, you know, I have a good team around me. We have a board. We actually meet on a weekly basis and go through all the numbers to see where we are. Because, you know, if you don't have the right information, you can't make the right decisions. Yeah. So, you know, we look at the numbers. We try to grow the business. You know, this time 2 years ago, we only had 20 staff. Now we have, you know, almost 70. And, you know, we have to keep looking at the numbers. So, you know, again, a good team around us, a good team of managers below board level as well who report to us. And, you know, we just talk, you know, during the week, you know, even if we're not on the board, we just talk. How's that going? You know, how many apprentices have you signed up today? Or, you know, what's the numbers looking like or whatever. So, you know, it's, you know, I let the financial side to the people who have that skill set, and then they report on a weekly basis. And, you know, it's very, very important that you can, you know, keep your eye on it because, you know, a lot of decisions can be made, and a lot of companies, you know, who don't look at the financials until it's too late, you know, could get under bother. So we look at it on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis. The numbers are very, very important for us.
Yeah. And just finally, I could go on, have loads more questions, but just finally, 5 or 10 years time from now, you look back on the Northwest or Derry and Strabane, what would you hope has happened? So what do you see should happen in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I would like to see, obviously, you know, full employment. I would like to see, you know, foreign direct investment here, higher paid jobs for all of our society, you know, trying to get the economically inactive into work, trying to lower that figure because we have in this area, you know, I suppose it's a bit like going back to when Strabane was the unemployment part of Europe. We're probably the highest economically inactive people in our society, to try and get them back. And, just have big names. Hopefully by that stage there'll be a lot of the city deal will be in place. We'll have the new health hub, sports hub, Northwest Regional College based in the Canal Basin in Strabane, and all the other city deal projects have come to fruition in Derry. And a very, very vibrant society that is working together for the same objectives. It's like you'll always hear me saying you can't go curl like Kayla, and every saying unity is strength. If we can work together for the same objectives, that's what it's all about. So society is a bit divided at the moment. It's getting better. I'd also like to see an increase in integrated education as well, because I think that's a key going forward. And that's the background that I'm from Sion Mills. And I think that could make a massive difference to society.
No, listen, Kieran, I really appreciate your time.
Come on.
Busy man, so I'll let you go. Thanks very much.